Welcome once again to Channel 18's Community Journal. And today we have the Harwich Conservation Trust with Matt Cannon and Michael Lack. And Michael, you want to talk today about your responsibility for land and how you do that?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Paul, and thanks everybody here at Channel 18 for hosting us once again. Matt and I are glad to be with you. At Harwich Conservation Trust, you know that our members, our supporters, donors, help us proactively pursue priority properties. And when we preserve them, we also have a responsibility to take care of them or be good land stewards over time, also called land management. And we're looking at a number of different aspects of land management. We'll touch on a couple of them today, generally speaking. One is property monitoring. We want to understand where the boundaries are, what condition the property is, including if there might be the presence of any invasive plants. Matt might want to comment a little bit about that. We have a couple photos to show you.
Sure, yeah, and the land management aspect, you were saying, marking the boundaries, you might see some medallions on our properties that helps us monitor over time. And we're looking for things like invasive species, as Mike said, and that's a prime example of what you might find, hopefully not too much. That's Japanese knotweed, and this picture really shows just how aggressive it can be growing through the cracks of this cement patio. Wow. Those roots can grow, 20 feet underground and find areas to pop up. It's very hard to get rid of, and it creates a monoculture. So one species, that one could take hold of a complete area, and it limits biodiversity, plant life, animal life. So we really try to keep invasive species like this one in check the best we can. This one is one of the harder ones to get rid of. So is this one, that's Phragmites. That's more of a wetland type invasive plant. You might see it around salt marshes a little bit. Same thing, it grows just in huge swaths, monocultures, and it takes the place of native plants.
So basically these, excuse me, these plants spread.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They take over a whole area.
They outcompete the native plant communities,
right. Wow.
Yeah, which then reduces wildlife diversity.
Yes. Yeah.
So we try and keep the native flora and fauna on the protected properties as much as possible.
Very good. That's a tough job.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have many of those?
There are spots around town. We've had a pretty good job over the last few years with volunteers to remove a lot of the invasive species, but things like Oriental bittersweet, I'm sure many people are more familiar with that, the red berries in the vine, they're spread by birds. So
really?
Even if we rip them out, the berries can still spread. So It's a very tough job, and we have to we'll have to do this for a long time.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're out there.
But another part of our land stewardship work includes more recently ecological restoration, and that's taking disturbed areas and naturalizing the site to bring back vegetation and wildlife. So, for example, you're going to see some photos queued up of the 17-acre Muddy Creek Headwaters project. That's shown in red there, the site, which occupies about 1,400 feet of shoreline along Muddy Creek flowing into Pleasant Bay. So that property, fortunately, thanks to strong donor support and town meeting voter support, we were able to preserve. But there was an abandoned building. Now, this is a great aerial view, and this is the back of the building shown. This was open to the weather for over a decade and sat there uninhabited and just deteriorating. And so we looked at that structure, assessed it, and determined we really had to remove it. And this is part of the process. We contracted local company Robert B. Auer to perform the demolition, and then they subcontracted with another company to safely remove the asbestos, which was found in the building. And then also an exterior oil tank, unbeknownst to the prior owner, had been leaking. for many, many years. And that heating oil had reached a depth of about 15 feet in the soil. So part of our land stewardship work included working with a contractor to place groundwater monitoring wells around the site of the leaking oil tank to understand what the level of groundwater was versus the depth of the leaking oil. Fortunately, the groundwater was at 22 feet, and the oil only leaked to 15 feet. So we had that soil excavated and removed off-site and recycled into pavement at a place called Aggregate Industries in Stoughton. And then the rest of the building was removed, and this is what it looked like in April, late April. And now, as of the end of June, you can start to see some meadow grasses taking place of the former disturbed house site. So we've been working with an eco-restoration company called Blue Flax Design and intelligent irrigation to make sure that these meadow grasses have a strong start. We've put in some split rail there along the edge of the future parking area. We're not going to open this up to a walking trail probably until at the earliest the end of 2018, because we want to make sure those meadow grasses really establish themselves, and then we'll take it from there. But that's just a glimpse into one ecological restoration project.
It sounds like it was an expensive process.
It was. Fortunately, we budgeted as part of the total project cost the need to take on this eco-restoration effort. So we had raised those funds in advance to undertake this. Yes. Yeah. So, and then another part of land stewardship is keeping an eye out for wildlife and trying to do our best to provide natural habitats for wildlife to find food, nesting opportunities, take shelter, different seasons of the year. And one we watch in particular is the eastern box turtle.
Oh, the box turtle.
Box turtle, yeah. Look at that photo right there. That's taken by one of our volunteer photographers, Janet DiMattia. And the box turtle it's a rare species in Massachusetts called a species of special concern, and has really suffered over the years because of habitat loss primarily. But this time of year...
What is the special habitat that they've lost?
Pine oak woods, also open areas. They move back and forth, especially this time of year, in search of nesting opportunities and mates. Often this time of year, after a heavy rain followed by a brighter day, you might see these box turtles on the move, but they go slow, and they will cross roadways. Look at this. This is the double yellow line we see on our local roadways. And that's a box turtle making its way across.
How long does it take him?
Well, that's a good question. It depends. But as you know, this is one of the busiest times of year on our local roadways in terms of traffic. So that's another way that these turtles have suffered mortality is through traffic conflicts, getting run over essentially, unfortunately. So that's sort of an elongated photo, but that's just one that's kind of hinged up in its shell, hence the name box turtle. It's got a flexible lower shell which can enclose its head and feet and tail completely. And it's just a beautiful sunburst, patterned gold and orange and dark brown and black pattern that if you just saw that and walking along a woodland trail, looking along the sun-dappled ground, you might not even notice it. These are all images actually taken by our volunteers who are on the lookout and reporting observations to us. Matt can talk a little bit more about that.
So the state relies on volunteers to actually give them input as to where these species are seen. So we're trying to gather that information. So volunteers, if they see one, take a picture, number one, and note the date and time, and then get in contact with us, and we can send you the forms. If you could try to fill out some, that's great. As long as you sign it, we can help you fill out the rest. And then we document where all the sightings have been in town to better assess some of our properties, as Mike was saying, with management. So if we know there's a certain amount of box turtles in one area, we'll keep a special eye on that area. If it's in other areas, maybe that's good for land protection in the future.
Now, you mentioned land animals. What kind of animals are in these lands? I mean, quickly.
Sure. Well, if you categorize quickly, we've got mammals, reptiles like box turtles, some amphibians if there's wetlands or open water areas, a lot of bird life,
Yes.
depending on the habitat type.
Yeah.
So, and other wildlife such as eels even that cross through a stream that runs through one of our properties. So depending on the site and the habitat types, that will determine the variety of wildlife that we might be monitoring or otherwise keeping an eye on.
Okay, well, you don't see too many land animals, or rather legged ones running around.
Red fox,
Yeah, red
skunk,
fox.
possum,
Okay.
coyote, raccoon, those
Very good.
white-tailed deer. Some of those are the four-legged animals
yeah.
you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah, the
yeah.
mammals. Yeah.
Oh, okay, very
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going. Are we going to the next item?
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about, speaking of animals, let's talk a little bit about our native nightlife walk,
Yes. Okay.
which is an opportunity for folks to learn about wildlife activity at the dusk, twilight time of day, when the sun's going down, maybe the moon's coming up. Look at that beautiful sunset photo by another one of our volunteer photographers, Gus Romano. We're partnering with Todd Kelly and then Native American Marcus Hendricks, shown here, talking to a group. Marcus has a Nipmuc and Wampanoag Native American heritage. Native nightlife walks are offered on selected Mondays this summer around the time of the full moon.
Wow.
Coming up on July 10th, Monday, July 10th, is the Thunder Moon, it's called.
Right.
And what we have offered is an opportunity for folks to learn about not only what wildlife might be out during that sort of twilight time of day, because these walks start at 6 p.m., they end at 8. You might get a chance to see the rising moon. That photo also taken by Gus Romano. I think that's amazing. That could be on National Geographic. But also to learn about what the Native American lifeways might have been like around that time of night. Storytelling, maybe fishing or other activities they might have engaged in, or even some of the activities that early settlers might have been accustomed to at that time of day. So Todd and Marcus will share all of that interesting information and intriguing stories with the assembled walkers. People can register online. It's $15 per person. They register online at our website, harwichconservationtrust.org. And the walks will take place in the Cape Cod National Seashore. So we're going beyond the border of Harwich, all the way up north to the Cape Cod National Seashore. Once you register, you'll receive directions. So we're going to keep it a surprise until you register. But we're partnering with the Eastham Conservation Foundation, which is our sister land trust in that town. It's a great opportunity to see the beauty of the National Seashore, a variety of habitats, and just learn more about some history and wildlife behavior that time of night. So,
sounds very interesting.
yeah, it's a really fun walk. Yeah.
Well, that's it for this session, is it?
Yes, yeah, thanks for having us.
It's been very
Thank you.
interesting. So
Yes.
Thank you both for coming.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.